Hey guys, in this video we're going to take a look at a few different aspects of CSS3. We're going to look at rounded corners, multiple backgrounds, image borders, gradients, and also some of the new color systems that we can use. Alright, so we have just a blank starter HTML document here, and I'm just going to create a couple divs. So let's give this an ID of rounded1. I'll just put some text in here, and I'm just going to put a line break here and then just copy that. Okay, we're going to have three different divs here. This will be rounded2, this will be rounded3. Okay, so let's start out with our rounded1 class or ID, and we're going to give it a background, let's say red, and let's see, we'll give it a color, a text color of white, and let's do width, we'll just say 200 pixels, and height will also be 200 pixels, and we'll give it some padding, and let's save it. Okay, so we have this red square. Now if we want to make the corners here rounded, what we can do is say border radius, and then whatever the amount, we're going to say start with 10 pixels. Alright, so you can see that now the corners are rounded. Before CSS3 we would have to actually create an image with this rounded part right here and then position it on the corners, which was really a pain in the neck. So this saved us a lot of headache to create rounded images or rounded borders. Alright, so we can change this to, let's say, 25, and now you can see the round is more defined here. If we were to say 50, you can see it gets even more rounded. And if we wanted to say, let's say 50%, we can also put percentages in. That basically turns it into a circle. Alright, so pretty easy. Let's just keep it at 10. Now, if you wanted to just have some of the corners rounded, you could also do that. So let's copy this and say rounded 2. And then what we're going to do, instead of border radius, we're going to say border top left radius 10 pixels. And I'm going to copy that. And then this one will be border bottom right radius. Okay, so now if we go and reload, you can see that we have rounded corners here and here, but these ones are normal. Okay, so you don't have to round all of them. Alright, and then you can also have a border as well. Let's do this third one here. And let's just say border radius. And for this one we'll do 50%. We'll make it into a circle. And let's also say border 3 pixels black solid. And there we go. So you can see we can have a border around it as well. Not only can we round borders on divs or elements like this, but we can also do it on images. Alright, so look, I have an image here. Let me just show you the folder that I'm working in, and you should have this in your files. We're going to take this bird image and just add it to our image tag here in the source. Alright, so you can see we have our image, and let's go up to the CSS and say img border radius 25 pixels. And you can see that it rounds the edges of the image. If we wanted the image to be completely round, we could set it to 50%, and now we have a rounded image. Alright, so that's it for rounded corners. Now we're going to take a look at image borders. Alright, so let's put a line break here, and we're going to create a div with the ID of, let's say, border image, And I'll just say this div uses an image border. Alright, and then let's go up here and say border image. And you should have an image called border. I think it's border PNG. Let me just check. Yeah, this border PNG right here. We want to take this and put it around that element. Alright, so what we can do is in here we'll say border. Let's say 10 pixels, solid, and then we're going to say transparent. And we'll say padding 15 pixels. And then we're going to say border image. And we're going to set that just as if it was a background image. We're going to use URL and border.png. And let's say 30 and round. And this can be repeated, round, or stretch. So let's go ahead and save that and see what we get. So you can see we have our text here and we have a border around the image. I'm sorry, around the element. So now we're going to look at backgrounds. So we're going to put a line break here. And let's create a div with the ID of myBG. And we'll put an H1. And then I'm just going to paste in 2 small paragraphs of sample text. Okay, so if we take a look at that, you can see we just have a heading and a couple paragraphs. What we want to do is go up to the CSS and say myBG. And we're going to set background image to URL. And let me see the name of the image. Okay, we want this flower image right here. Image underscore flower dot gif. Okay, now that's one image, but I also want to have this paper image as a background repeated across the entire thing. Okay, it's a seamless texture. So what we can do is just put a comma here and then put another URL, and we'll say paper.gif. All right, so that's how we can add multiple background images. Okay, so now we're going to set background position, and we want right bottom. Okay, so that's the position for the first image, the flower, and then we want left top for the paper image. All right, and then we'll do background repeat. Okay, now we don't want to repeat for the flower, which is the first image. We do, however, for the paper. So comma repeat. Okay, and you can do this for as many images as you want. Also background size. Actually, we'll do that after. Let's do padding. Okay, so we'll say 15 pixels, and let's just show without the padding first, see what we get. Alright, so you can see we have our paper image, which is repeating, and then we have the flower image. Now let's add a little bit of padding. So I want 15, and then let's do 200 pixels on the right, 15 and 15. Okay, so you see we now have a nice little background, and we're utilizing multiple images. Now, as I was showing you, we can also set background size. And let's say 100 pixels, 100 pixels. And then that should shrink the flower image down to 100 pixels. Alright, so that's how you can use multiple background images. Now we're going to get into gradients. Okay, so let's go down here and add a line break. And we're going to add in a couple divs here. Let's give them IDs. We'll say grad1. And I'm going to put a line break. And we're going to have 4 of these. Okay, they're all going to be very similar. I just want to give you a couple different options. Alright, so let's say grad 1. And we're going to first set a width of 500 and a height of 200. And then let's give it a background of blue. Alright, so we have a div here with a blue background. Now, to make it gradient is very simple. We can just say background. Now, I know we already have background blue, but you want to keep this because if the browser, if it's IE9 or under, it's not going to be able to do the gradient, so you want to have some kind of color there, most likely. Alright, but to do the gradient, we can say linear dash gradient. And then in here, we can put our colors. Let's say blue and black. Save that, and you can see now we have a gradient of blue and black. And you can even add more colors if you want. Let's say we wanted white in there as well. Now you can see we have blue, black, and white. Now you could have this going in a different direction if you want, so let's do that with gradient 2. So we can do the same thing here, but let's get rid of the white. And then all we need to do is go to this first parameter. We're going to say 2, let's say 2 right, comma. Okay, we reload, and now you can see that the gradient is, you can see the black is on the right now. We could also have it go diagonal. So let's say gradient 3, and to do that, we'll say instead of 2 right, we're going to say 2 bottom right. And then that one you can see is diagonal. And in addition to linear gradient, we can also do a radial gradient. So we'll do that for grad 4. We're just going to change linear to radial. And let's see what that gives us. That doesn't give us anything because we have this 2 right. Got to get rid of that. And now you can see it's radial. It starts from the center out. Okay, and we can add another color here. Let's say white. Alright, now we can also specify how much of each color we want. So if we were to say, let's actually put white here. So we'll say white 5% and blue 15%. And then black 60%. Reload, and you can see that it has a specified amount of the color. Okay, now we can also put a shape in here, so we can say circle and reload, and now you can see it's much more round. And if we want to repeat the gradient, we could say repeating radial gradient. And there we go. Okay, so there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this. Now, the last thing I want to get into is the new color systems that we can use. And I'm just going to go ahead and change the colors of these rounded corner divs. So let's go to the first one here, and we're going to use RGBA. Now, we've used RGB back in a couple videos ago. In CSS3, we now can use RGBA. Alright, the A is for alpha, which basically pertains to the opacity or the transparency. Alright, so if we were to get rid of this red here, and let's say RGBA, and in here we'll say 255.00. Now that's RGB, but we can add on another parameter here, let's say 0.3. Save it, and now you can see we get our red, but it's much lighter. Okay, so you can have much different shades of each color. Okay, if we were to get rid of that, it would just be red. Alright, if we were just to do RGB. Alright, but that gives us some more options. Okay, now we can also use what's called HSL, which is hue, saturation, and lightness. So basically we have a wheel with 0 to 360 degrees. So to give you an example, we'll say HSL, and let's say 120. We'll do 120, 100%, and 75%. That should give us a green color. Alright, and we can change these parameters around. You can experiment with them a little bit. Let's say 50%, and that'll change the shade of green. And then the last one is going to be HSLA, which is just like HSL, except it also has that opacity option. Okay, so let's say HSLA. We'll do 120, 100%, 50%, and then 0.3. And now you can see it gives us a lighter shade of green. Alright, so those are some of the new features of CSS3. In the next video, we're going to take a look at some more. We're going to look at text shadows and box shadows.